Last night, I discussed a lot about my family, and I said, because it's not being recorded. Now it's being recorded, and my family is here. So I'd just like to thank everyone for inviting us. We have had the most amazing Shabbos, probably 3-4 days, in many years. And there's just a lot to say, but I'm just not going to say it right now. 2 points I'd like to just start with just before we go. First, thanking unconditional parenting that is coming that is here. The power and the koyach that we saw last night is something that you can touch. It's palpable. And that is a koyach that is going to make changes all over. That is the power that it is. The koyach of chizuk is beyond powerful. That's step one. The second point is to look at the power of us as an individual. I'm going to give you concepts and theories, and we do that, and it's wonderful. But if we could realize that each and every one of us, if we just change ourselves, everything is going to change from there. It's not about the teenagers, it's not about the kids. It's all about changing ourselves. And once we do that, then we see tremendous changes and shifts all over. So let's start. We hear about understanding the teenage mind. The teenage mind, to get what they're going through, is a huge book of pages and pages and pages. Each child will be different, and I'll tell you what's written inside. It is blank. There's absolutely nothing going on in that mind at that time when they are struggling. You can try to connect to them this way or that way, and it might work or it might not work. I had an amazing source of speaking to someone just before we started, and he told me that he was struggling. And he asked, what is something that your parents could have done for you? It was nothing. I was in a dark place. So if we understand that the teenagers are in a dark place from where they're at, it's a huge book, but it is empty. You don't know how to get in there because they don't know how to get into themselves. Therefore, once again, whose job is it? Who do we need to work on? Us. When we change ourselves, we now have the ability to then go into our child's life, as we're going to go soon and understand the concept of training wheels, as you've got on a bike, and how to balance them. Let's go into the 3 stages of development. Pasha, Aleph phase. Child, teenage, and adult. What is the child stage? The child stage is, I want, I'm in pain, I'm asking, I'm begging, Mommy, give it to me, Tati, give it to me, and you make the decision yes or no. You give it to them, I love you. You don't give it to them, I hate you. It's bedtime, I don't want to go to sleep. Please, another 5 minutes. You give them 5 minutes, I love you. Then they ask for another 5 minutes, and you give them an hour, and I love you again. And then you say, now it's bedtime, and I hate you. That's a child, and our job is, I love you, Shafla, you're great, you're so special, and I hate you, I can't stand you. You put them to sleep, and they go to sleep, and they wake up in the morning. If it's still, they got enough hours, they love you in the morning. If they didn't get enough sleep, and you made the mistake of letting them stay up later and later and later, your response is going to be a kvetchy, cranky kid that's going to be fighting with everyone, including you. So the child stage is pretty simple. Most of the parenting systems are, how do you stay grounded? How do you be aware when your kid needs the structure? And you can give a little extra, but when you just create the structure, they're going to challenge you. Pretty simple, pretty straight. And you can guarantee that a child will never go to sleep on their own. Never, unless the parent creates a structure. But whatever it is, the child will always, can guarantee it, will not create the boundaries because their brain has not developed. Let's go to an adult. The type of an adult that should be, now most of us are there in most of our areas, but not in all, and the type of an adult is, I am doing what I am doing because that's what I need to do. That means if no one is watching, I am still going to do the dishes. If no one's watching, I'm still going to earn, and I'm still going to get up and work. If no one's watching, I'm still going to daven. I've got to do tasks, whether I get credit for it or not. And many times we have to work when we don't see the return of our investment, the ROI. We don't see it. But yet, what we are doing as an adult is we do it, And we do it because that's what we're supposed to do. And that is another type for integrity. Integrity means I will do something, whether people see it, whether I get respect, whether I get credit. That is an adult brain. Pretty simple as well. It's hard, it's challenging, we do it. Now let's go to the teenage stage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the teenage stage going from a child, where we have to create that boundary, that balance, going to an adult that they will be able to create the boundaries on their own. In order for them to get there on their own, that means there has to be a shift. There has to be a shift where parents are first telling them what to do, from complete control over their lives, literally when you're going to sleep, what are you going to eat, what you're going to eat, again, as much as we have that ability, but we have a kashrus food, we have a whole bunch of points that we have, and take it even if a child's allergic to certain food. As a child, the parent has to prevent them from doing it. As an adult, we're expecting that they will now know, I'm allergic to this, I won't eat it on my own. So child brain, adult brain, very easy. How do you get from the child level to the adult level, from needing you to be on top of them, to you completely letting go that they're going to be there on their own? And that is the most complicated stage to go through. Because let's realize what us adults go through. Let's see what kids go through, and then we'll see how we want them to do that on their own. How do we expect them? Every one of us, Baruch Hashem, has gotten there, but how do we expect them to get there? A child works with their feelings, impulses. I need, I want. Adult is saying, I know what I need and I know what I want, but I still have to be structured. And there's a time for everything. Now we're going to take this teenager and expect them to go from I need to say I won't do it. But they don't have the skills for that. So what do? Here's where a parent comes in. So imagine you've got a child that's learning to ride a bike, and they've got training wheels. And now you're taking off the training wheels. And now the question is, how long do you hold the kid's seat in back when they're learning? Do you do it for a day? Do you do it for a week? Do you do it for 3 weeks? And the answer depends depending on the child. Depending how quick they develop. Depending how quick they're able to learn the balancing act. Depending on how many hours they practice a day. So we want black and white answers. How do we deal with teenagers to get them from this stage to that stage when there are so many variables? Variables are depending on the parents. Variables are depending on the child becoming a teenager. Variables depending on their friends. This role that we are, every one of us, our schus, that we daven for, siyata d'shmaya, is how to get the child to be on their own, that they could do it on their own, they'll be able to build a bayis now in the Yisrael, is the question that we're going to try to address a little today. So to give a little insight on the parsha that we had today, it's literally 10-second part. When you have Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur, Lamata Yehuda, Betzalel was how old? He was 13. And where did it come from? It came from a koiches of the Zaydis, of Chur. Because he was neshama and everything, the Chur was killed, he's being massacred and building the Mishkan. We need to realize the koiches of us parents and grandparents, the environment that we have, that we create, that we can create this in our child, and Baruch Hashem, we're all zeichet to have that. I know so many of us are focused, as I mentioned Friday night, of the challenging child, but are we forgetting all the successes that we have with all our other children? Are we forgetting about all the successes we even have with this child? It's just 1 or 2 areas that they're struggling, and we're busy knocking ourselves down and beating ourselves up for what we're not doing. So there is a therapist which likes changing the whole view of psychology, and he changed, his name was Eric Erickson. What he changed was, he was saying, instead of looking at people's development on where they are, let's see socially what changes in the environment. What changes does the environment have an impact on the person? And he's gone through from childhood all the way up to the late 80s. They've even added it on now. His stopped by 70. By him from 60 years old to 90, he put it all the same stage. His Talmidim just divided that into 2. But the chiddush that he came up with, the stages of 12 years old to 18, which I think is really going beyond that to at least 24, the title that he gives it is called, imagine, what do you think we would call the title, by the way? Think of it. Identity. Who am I going to become versus role confusion. I will be stuck in this role, I will be confused in this role, and I will stay there, unfortunately, practically forever unless you heal this. So either a teenager develops an identity, or chas v'shalom, they will be stuck and struggling with where they're at. Listen to the challenges that a teenager has to come up with in identity. Who am I? Remember, we want them to become an adult, that they develop who I am on my own. We don't want to have to be at 60, the mother calling up, did you go to work today? We have that. And one of the ways that we get out of that is we have to help them get through that stage, that they should have it on their own. So the identity that we want them to realize is they've got to go through all the doubts, go through that with the support of a parent, of Rabbanim, of Maggid Shirim. That's why we need an entire system, and that's his concept. We need a social environment. Imagine anyone that is not in a frum system. What system do you have that you can speak to a Maggid Shirim, to a Rebbe? Where do you have someone where we've got an unconditional parenting from Mrs. or family Lisser, from Chaim, from the family Scherer, from having Reb Malach, as I have him down? Where do you have a community where people are unconditionally giving and you have a support? And we have Gedolim and Rabbanim that are willing to speak to anyone. Gedolim are coming down to Bachrim's yeshivas and speaking to them, and they're looking up to that. Why? Because it's an investment that we are helping people develop an identity. So what are identities that teenagers go through? Who am I? Why should I be from? What are the benefits of being from? What's the benefits of getting up in the morning? What are the benefits of having friends? What's the benefits of being close to my parents? Why should I listen to my parents? Why should I listen to rules? Especially teenagers in Lakewood, because it's more, that's where I come from. Teenagers love this. Red lights are just a stop sign. I stopped. It's late at night. There's no cars coming for miles. Just drive. It's a teenage stage. You don't see 30-year-olds doing that. But the teenage stage is, why should I stop at a red light if I know for a fact there are no cars coming? This is the teenage stage going, what is the identity? Who am I and why should I do it? Role confusion goes the other way. Role confusion is, today I'm going to get up. Then tomorrow, why should I get up? Then the mashgiach yells at you for not getting up. Who is he to tell me what to do when he doesn't know how to take care of the Talmidim? Everyone hates him. So therefore now, there's no structure, and they're getting more and more confused with this doubt. Now I'm going to say something that's only for stage 1, not for stage 4. Not giving them structure is going to destroy them. Because what these kids need is structure. And structure means that they have parents that will create a certain level of structure, but also giving space to wiggle. So let's go back to the concept right now of holding the bike. So the kid is riding the bike, and they're afraid and they're petrified, and you're holding it, and they're wobbling from side to side, and you're still holding the bike, and you're running along, and you're out of breath. And they're yelling at you, how you're not holding it strong enough, but you're still holding it, saying, I'm there, I'm there, I'm there. And then all of a sudden you let go and they think you're still holding on, and then they fall, and then it's your fault. How could I ever trust you? How did you let go? Then you go, I'm sorry, I slipped, I dropped it, but we'll try it again, but look how well you did. And you go through the process again, over and over and over. We need to give the teenagers enough room to wiggle, to hold on as many times as they need it. And holding on means we're creating structure. But at the same time, when we feel they're ready, let go. And when they let go, we know they're going to fall. They have to fall. They have to fall in order to start developing who am I. So there is a new concept coming up today. It's a chiddush noira to the world. To us it's as old as Aleph Beis. And that is, challenges is actually a strength. There's a great cookie, and if you eat it, you're going to gain weight. You eat it and you want to lose weight, either you're going to not eat the next cookie or you're going to start going on a treadmill. Now let's see if math equals. 1 cookie, 10 seconds to eat, 20 minutes treadmill. It is not a fair math. That is the reality of math. Teenagers don't get it. They want to be able to be up till 5 in the morning, and I will still get up for 7 o'clock shacharis. No problem. And they're not getting how the struggle happens if they won't do it. Now, if we can give the concept of, no, get up, you can stay up till 1 a.m., so we're giving the wiggle room, you can stay up till 1 a.m., if you can get up, go to sleep 1 a.m. for 2 weeks straight, and still get up for shacharis, then we could discuss staying up till 2. So you're giving them now wiggle room from the 11 o'clock p.m., which was their bedtime, with a little bit of structure, a little bit of wiggle room. And now, they're resisting it, but now they got to start figuring it out on their own. 2 days they did it because they're going to prove you wrong. The 3rd day they'll do it to prove you wrong. The 4th day they're already coming late to shacharis, but I made it to shacharis. You go, yeah, no problem. And then all of a sudden, the 5th day, the mashgiach is so mean. He is so nice. He's picking on me. So many kids miss shacharis today, and I'm the only one he picked on. And what you're going to be doing is setting the boundary. It's not about the mashgiach, it's about you. And this is where you need to start having that balance. Let's take it a step further. Teaching our teenagers the concept of the risk and reward means if you're going to do this, this is going to be the challenges, but this is also going to be the reward of what you have, has a tremendous impact. I'd like to read to you the synonyms for pain. So the concept when you try to creating a boundary to a teenager, or you're letting the teenagers to get a little on their own, to start juggling as they're balancing themselves on the bike. So synonyms are the words that are very similar. What are the words that are similar to pain? And I just did a quick search, and tell me how many of the teenagers use this. You're hurting me by setting a boundary. I'm in agony for what you're doing. I feel discomfort. I'm feeling choked, cramped. I'm feeling that you're hurting me, you're injuring me. Illness, it's burning, you're killing me. How many teenagers, when they're going through a little bit of a challenging time, these are the words that they're using? Listen to the antonyms, the words that are another type, I should say the exact opposite of pain. And that's if we can allow children, teenagers, to develop the uncomfortability of pain, that means this is part of life. You want to eat the cookie, no problem. But you want to be skinny, then you're going to have to do 20 minutes of the treadmill. And you're going to schwitz, and it's going to be hard. And it's okay. How do we get that? So listen to the antonyms, the words that are the exact opposite of pain, and tell me if this isn't what we all know as adults. It's advantage. You're going to grow from this. It's an aid. This challenge, this doing the exercise is going to help your heart. It's going to help your entire body grow. Assistance. It will help you. You will get assistance if you can continue going through this pain. Benefit. Blessing. Comfort. Content. And ease. Can we realize if we start looking at our teenagers, and when they're going, I'm in pain, this is a cognitive shift saying, yes, you're in life. You're going to succeed. You're going to get there. And in order for that to happen, we need to change our narrative. So there's a beautiful therapy called narrative therapy, actually. It was made, as they call it, from down under. We can still say down under. And the narrative therapy was made that the way we look at situations is how we're going to be stuck in that. So narrative therapy was originally done for the entire world, sort of. It was done for many cultures that feel that they're oppressed, and it was done for a global issue, and they're stuck with a narrative that we are oppressed and no one's accepting us for many different reasons. And what they've tried to do is, in a very politically correct way, change the narrative. That if we've been oppressed for so many years, and we're still here, we can succeed. We have resilience. We can overcome that. I wonder if we can start looking at our teenagers, this is first classical teenagers, then we're going to go to the challenging teenagers, and saying, it's okay. We're so afraid. I've gotten so many questions of parents saying, my kid will be upset, my kid won't manage. And what happens if we change our narrative that this is life? You actually want to work out how hard is it to go do that bench pressing? How hard is it to go do the treadmill? How hard is it to sit down and learn that time? Those of you who do the Daf Yomi, sing your Tehillim, whatever it is. But the challenge of how hard it is actually gets you stronger. That is the koyach. That's where it comes from. But Saleh ben Uri ben Chor built it because of Chor. So for all of you that don't know, Aaron HaKohen, when he did the Egel, they killed Chor, which was his nephew. And because of that, Aaron HaKohen was afraid that Chas v'Shalom Klal Yisrael, although Erev Rav was going to kill him, so he said, let's build the Egel, don't do that to me, as a little Parshim say, because then Chas v'Shalom, Hashem would have been very upset at Klal Yisrael. So Chor, because he was Makrav al Kiddush Hashem, his grandson, 13 years old, was Zeicha to have all that. The koyches that we put in up here, our grandchildren might see it, but we might not see it right away. Understanding this concept, changing the narrative, the challenge that our kids are going through, what will change by us if we change our narrative? Yes, they're down. Yes, they're struggling with a lot. What changes when we're not victims? And that's what we shared Friday night. If we start changing it, it is not us. It is not our parenting skills that caused it. I am clear. Because I'll show you parents 1,000 times worse. And yet their kids are great. And I'll show you parents 1,000 times better than us. And their kids are struggling too. And I'll show you the same family of you have two brothers. We're both as dysfunctional, and one kid's okay and one's kids aren't. And their spouses are just as dysfunctional. So let's get out of this blame game, and it's your fault, and it's my fault, and let's say, how do we heal? So what can we do to heal if it's not us? I like this. If it's not us, how are you now going to look at the kid? What will be the narrative if we're going to change our kid to a regular teenager? You're meant to fight, I'm meant to hold the bike. You're meant to fall, I'm meant to say, I'm meant to kiss your knee. It feels so bad. We know we're doing it. We did this with our second kid and with our third kid. And we play the game as if we have no idea. Are you holding on? Yes, I'm holding on. You really not. Then you go, look, you're doing it. And then they say, oh my gosh, you let go. And then they fall. And then they blame you for it. And you say, but look how well you can do it. Their narrative is still, I can't. And our job is to hold them until their narrative changes. And their narrative changes, they got to start seeing that they can. And the way they can see that they can is when we start sharing with them where they can be. When you tell a teenager, look at what you're going to end up being. You can be this successful. You can be so great. You can be so powerful. This is where you're going to end up. There's a goal. When you've got Bachar, you have Gedolim coming down to the yeshivas, there's nothing to me as great as that, as a Bachar feeling. And these young Bachar, they are sure that they are at the peak of Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, Sanhedrin, and them. And then they have a gadol coming down, and they have this. This is their narrative. They speak to anyone. They're greater. They know more. They're yeshiva bachar. They're in it 24/7. The ability to give their narrative that they are fantastic, and that's where they are. That's what we want to get to. So now, when a kid falls down on the bike, do we tell them how bad they are? Do we tell them how they failed? Or do we tell them, you're doing great, I'm sorry I dropped it. Now, how many of us have a hard time doing with our teenagers? Almost all of us do. And do you know why? Because the teenager doesn't look like a kid anymore. The teenager looks like an adult. They act like an adult, means they use words that adults use. They're in an adult body, but they got lost in the middle and they're still stuck as a child. So you can have children that are 40 years old and they're still stuck. The amount of times that I've worked in therapy with 75, 80-year-old parents saying, what do I do with my 45-year-old son that has never made parnasa? I'm supporting this kid all my life, coming close to the end of my life. I can't continue doing this. This kid is going to have to start marrying off kids very soon. And they're still in that teenage stage. Teenage stage is as follows. I want everything like a child. So it's, I want to do everything, but you, Tati and Mommy, you have to bail me out. Every one of the children suffering and struggling is exactly this stage. I'm not going to yeshiva or to school. I'm going to get tattoos, piercings, everything that I want. You're going to pay for all subscriptions to wherever I need, all the games and everything, all my friends, but don't ask me for anything back. That's exactly the teenage stage. And we can't grab them and put them to sleep. We can't yell at them because they're going to yell back, not like those little kids where you could yell and you're just yelling louder, or they yell and you can't. You lost your physical ability to do that with them. So how do you help them? How do we help them with all the regular children? And with the regular teenagers, it's explaining it to them, it's giving them room, and sometimes putting down your foot, being the bad cop. The challenge is, how do you do it with a kid that is struggling? So if we understand that with adults, with healthy teenagers, it's that struggle, it's that balancing act that we need, the next step that we need to do is the kid that is struggling within, here's where the problem starts. You can't hold the bike because they don't want you to get close to them. They don't want you to be there for support. They don't want you to allow you to struggle or to be there when they're struggling, when they hurt themselves and they're in pain and they're in agony and they're burning and they're cramped and they're discomfort and they have the fever and they feel illness and they feel injury. They don't want you to kiss their knee at this point. And what happens is, there are no antonyms, you can't tell them. But you'll see the advantage, you'll learn to ride the bike. Look, your friend is riding, you can't aid them, you can't assist them. There's no benefit, there's no blessing, there's no comfort, there's no content, and there's no ease. We are literally watching someone that we love, a part of us, crumble and disappear. And as I've shared, the hardest cases I've ever worked on, with the most tears ever, was of a parent losing a child. I've helped people go through the end-of-life process where there's a terminal illness. But helping a parent that has lost a child is probably the greatest cries that I've ever worked on or had in my office, that I still can feel the chills in my body from that. A parent watching a child struggling and watching their entire life go under, watching a child take drugs and not be able to do anything and giving money, or getting their friends and having the friends over, and then worrying what was going to be the next step, or watching the process of chas v'shalom, worrying every night, and that panic attacks, those nights the kids aren't home, and you can't hold on to the back of that bike because they don't want you there. So who is their support? Do you know who their support is? Other kids like that can't ride a bike, that's falling down and hurting themselves, and telling them now, listen to their words. The whole world is full of ache. Don't we hear that? The whole world is full of agony. The whole world is bad and it burns. The whole world is cramped. Now they got a chevra. We're all agreeing. The world is horrible, and they're all struggling, and it makes so much sense to them. Because they're being validated by people that are completely dysfunctional. Now, if you try to talk logic to that, like say, hello, don't you see your 5 friends think this way? You're all up all night, not succeeding, you're down, you're depressed, it's horrible. Like, maybe change your narrative? You guys just don't get me. You don't get it. You're part of the problem. And then they stop talking. And then you lose it. So let's go to a little bit of the solutions of what we can do. Step 1 is understanding where they are. They can't handle life. They can't go back to yeshiva because any little bump that they have, they are being bruised, and there's nothing to ease that pain. So how are we trying to send them back? Another point, what happens if they've got a diagnosis? Take ADHD, a popular one everyone likes doing. So these boys and girls can't function well in school. So we're sending them back, which when life gives them, the ache, the agony, the burn, the cramp, the discomfort. Someone made a comment. Right away, they fell off the bike, and there's no self-soothing. So what we do is, instead of getting to a solution, we're pushing them more into the pain where there's no support. And that is why step 1 is, how do we connect to them? And connecting to them means that, yes, you're going to hold the bike, and they might do well once, but then when they fall, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you're doing so well? There was Shabbos going for 7-8 weeks, and the next thing you know, the 9th week, there is no Shabbos going on, or you hear all of a sudden things that you realize Shabbos is not going on. How are you going to do that with that bike? You're finally connecting, and now what are you going to do? Are you going to reinforce, unfortunately, the aches, the agony, the burn, the cramps, the discomfort? Or are we going to start seeing how do we turn this into an advantage? Now, I'm not going into any psak halachas that you're going to have to speak to your Rav and how to deal with it, but let's get the concept. The concept is we need to connect to allow us to be on that bike. Now, many times you find there'll be one parent they like, one parent they don't. The first step is you're going to realize they're going to like the parent that tells them yes. And the goal is right now, do that. We want to connect. We want to start building the connection. After you've got the connection, you start learning how to ride that bike. Now, what happens when the parent needs the other spouse? Most of the time we're not working together, and that's the goal of unconditional parenting, getting the parents together. Many times as a parent, someone is going to set the structure, the boundary, generally, I shouldn't say generally, it could be anyone, and now you're stuck. Because your spouse is not going to work with you. So they said, it's okay, and all someone says, really? You think you look good with that tattoo? It's ugly. Can't believe you actually got that. And then your 6 weeks of building up your kid, mommy or tati, just ruined. But let's be clear. Are we going to allow them to do everything? Can't. What's going to happen if they're going to do it to other kids are going to see that? We can't allow that to happen. And our goal is going to be we're changing our narrative. We're not allowing this to happen. Our goal is to get this child a completely functioning and Shomer Shabbos. And the goal is eventually to get them to the exact spot where we want them to be, just at the frumkeit level that we're on. But we got to realize what is the immediate goal. The immediate goal is we have to change our narrative. We're teaching our kid to ride a bike, and to ride a bike that they will fall, and we got to be able to support them to hurt that knee, that bruised knee. So number one is understand life is challenging. So here is something that no one thinks of, and it's really out of the box. And these are one of the reasons it's amazing how Hashem did something to this teenage stage, because I've had this chus to work with Rabbanim and Rosh Hashivas, that all their children say, my father, if you know who my father really is, he's not this big Rosh Hashiva, he's not this big Rabbi, you would know what goes on behind the scenes. I go, yeah. And when they talk about their Rosh Hashiva, how great their Rosh Hashiva is, we need a healthy attachment somewhere. When the kids are challenging, and they lost our struggle, they lost us, can you find a mentor? A mentor is someone that they don't have this tug-of-war where they feel you're going to look at them if they're up late at night. So the mentor is someone that can give them that unconditional understanding, and because it's not their child, they're not triggered. So you did 9 Shabbosim great, you fell once. This is like a Hatzalah member. You're getting a mitzvah, you're getting a schar for saving, for being Machal Shabbos. For you kept 9 Shabbosim, that's a schar. Fell once. Again, you have to speak to the Rav, but then if we do it the right way, you're going to keep now 30. And then Chas Hashem fall once. Might even be 10 years. People sometimes that struggle with addictions, they could be clean for 5 or 10 years and fall once. And the goal is not if you fell, the goal is how are you going to pick yourself up? Are you going to go right back to that support, to that unit, or not? So the first step is getting a mentor that can give it to them. The second one is much deeper. Can we become that mentor? Can we change our narratives? Why do we need the other person to accept our children? And the only way that changes is if we start working on ourselves. And no, I'm not talking about therapy. I'm talking about realizing what was my trigger? What did I just do? What does my kid do that I just reacted? So we've heard some fantastic stories over Shabbos where we shared, where there's one woman that said that her son did not want to talk to her, but for several months, he allowed her to have earphones on his ears, not talking to her, but she sat next to him during supper time. And after a couple of months, this is the first week that they started playing a game. First time, took off the earplugs, whatever he was listening to, and played a game. These couple of months of us being the child's mentor, which is what mentor does. There's no judgment. You're hitting me, and I'm not reacting. And that builds the connection. Once you have the connection, now the kid falls, you go, oh, I feel so bad you fell. We now have that connection, and that's what a mentor can do. But us as parents, we're triggered. Another point, third point is, can we look at, most of the questions that I've gotten was as follows. my son or daughter loves this parent, doesn't like the other parent because of a specific trauma, a specific issue. Meaning this father or mother is angry, this one is always nervous. Or this one yells at me, or this one doesn't like me as much. And the child will tell it to the other parent. They'll tell, let's just say classic, because like the male-female energy. So let's just say the man is a father that's always saying, no, Shabbos. And the mother's saying, Shefel, I'm so happy that you came to the Suda. At least we're starting with the Suda. And I'm so happy you didn't have your friends today. Or that you spent time with the family. So we're doing it that way. Now the child will tell the parent saying, why doesn't Tati ever accept me? Or why is he doing that? This is very clearly, they just told you exactly what they want from the parent. That parent, which we think, they don't like it, they're actually begging for this connection. The question is, are we now willing to change ourselves? Are we willing to recognize our shortcomings, our triggers? And again, Friday night we went into that Arichas, and we even did a demonstration with two people, what would be my trigger or my issue if this happens? And we found your trigger. And once you have your trigger, you realize how you jumped. You lost that mentoring position. So if we need, I believe every child that is struggling, the challenging teenager should have a mentor. I believe the mentors before they're struggling should be machanchim, should be Rabbeim. I say this all the time in all my programs, Rabbeim should get paid. I say just half as much as a therapist. A therapist is a 45-minute session, in and out. Machanchim and Rabbeim spend 10 hours with bachrim, with girls, the teachers, and they get a nice gift, shalach manos. Please, whatever the therapist charges, $150 for 45 minutes, give them $75 an hour. That's it. But you'll see 10 hours is $750, and they're giving up time from their family, from the time to prepare. The first step is get those mentors. Get them involved. Second step is start realizing, how is this mentor connecting that I'm not? What do I need to change? And there comes the secret where we're actually learning how to hold the bike, how to teach this child to balance the bike. And I want to go back to it. You're not wrong and you're not at fault, because look at your other children that are fantastic. Simple muscle to get this. If you have 10 children and one child is allergic, and now you have to learn how to cook an entire menu for this one child, does that mean you're a bad parent, that you don't know how to cook or make the food or bake the food or have the house freeze specifically for that allergy? No, you're a fantastic parent and this kid needs something special. Why not get the training? Why not go to a group? Why not speak one-on-one? And what will help you do is recognize what's your trigger. This kid has got an allergic reaction. Chances are it's to one of the two parents that have exactly the same nature. And now you got to deal with yourself. And if you don't think you have it, just ask your spouse and they'll tell you this one's exactly like you. And they'll tell you how the exact action or the exact pain or the exact freedom or whatever you like to say, exactly. And what's amazing to me is when you have a parent come and saying, look at my kid who doesn't get up, and that's the parent that doesn't get up early. Or look at this kid how he gets angry and violent, and that's the parent that you're yelling and shouting, you hear it through the walls in my waiting room. It's unbelievable when you have the parents not even realizing their issue, but trust me, just ask your spouse and they'll tell you you're exactly that. So if we can, the next step is realizing our trigger, and we can be that mentor, but you can't do it yourself. I'm just telling you straight, you can't do it yourself. You can't write down, okay, let me write down my 3 faults. Because then just ask your spouse, they'll tell you, no, don't work on those 3. I'll tell you which 3 things you should work on. The 3 things that your spouse tells you to work on is exactly what your child is giving you struggles, is giving you trouble, is that. And after speaking to several kids over, let's say, the last month and a half, they've all said something very interesting. And notice again the projection. If my parent would be in therapy, I would be different. So I asked the child, how about we do something different? You go to therapy, and we'll get your parent to therapy. Would you go then? Almost every one of them says yes, which is shocking. I don't know if they'll actually do it. But that is usually the window that we can do. That's what the child is actually saying is, I want you to hold on. Now, I'm not talking about stage 4 again. Just to be clear, we're not talking, for those listening, there's like stage 1, 2, and 3 are kids that are great, they're having a little issues. Stage 2 is when they're starting having more issues. They're talking about, I don't want to go to school, they're starting to fight to school. You're having a major challenge with that. Stage 3 is already where they're not in school, but you're still talking to them, they're still keeping Shabbos, they're still keeping everything. And stage 4 is unfortunately when they've already gone beyond the next step, where they're not in school, they're not keeping Shabbos, they're not keeping things, and they're with that really deep pain, and they're not able to listen, not able to function. So we're talking about stages 1, 2, and 3, where you're interacting with them, where you can still connect with them. Just because they're not in school, you can get them back in school. And what's most disappointing of all is, the relationship that they want the most holding that bike is the parent that they have the biggest issue with. So it could be, if they get along, the father they can speak to, or the mother they can speak to. The one that they really want to work it out with is that parent that's challenging them. And if we can change, is that modeling? We show them that we can change, that will change your child. One of my most favorite systems of therapy is called client-centered theory. And client-centered theory is actually, I said I'm not going to repeat anything from Friday night, this is the one little thing. And that is client-centered theory is you change yourself, you change the world. Aleph Beis in Yiddishkeit. You change your midas, you change where you are, it is a must. It will change the interaction. You cannot have the same negative interaction if you are a different person. They can't hit your buttons. And that's the point. If a parent goes to therapy, or you're getting guidance how to deal with that child, you're not getting guidance on how to change yourself. You're getting guidance to hit that weakness that those kids are hitting. And once you can change that, once you don't react, once you learn how to be around their environment when they're acting that way, now they start feeling safe. The last one that I would like to just go to is when people go to stage 4, my kid doesn't want to be around me. They don't want to speak to me, they don't want to hear from me. I want us to change the narrative. The power of people, and especially of a group, believing stays in their ears. It stays there. And it might take months, it might even take years. And as we've heard the amazing story from the Rabbi, that was completely off for 40 years, but people believing, people saying, yes, you can, it penetrates. Again, not like that, yes, you can, and not when you just yelled at them 50 times, but I still believe in you if you'd only listen to me. We're talking about, I see the potential in you. I see you have the ability. Really believe it, and not getting triggered will have that level. And the only way to do this is you actually stay around them. You're actually there for them. So many times when they're around, you need to drive somewhere, I'll drive you. I'll share with you a story, which this person is actually graduating now, social work school. He had a kid that was struggling terribly. And the kid, questionably if he was keeping Shabbos or not. And when he offered his son, I'm going to take you guys, you and all the friends, on ATVing. The son says, you think I'm going with you in the car? You're driving us ATVing? He says, no problem. He says, I'm willing to sponsor for you and all the friends. And the friends heard that, free ATVing. Of course we're going. He says, but I'm driving you guys. Boy says, absolutely not. All the friends say, absolutely yes. So when you have a social pressure saying, let's go with your father, kid saying, absolutely not. He says, why not? He says, we want to talk. You're not going to like it. So the father had earphones. The kids got to control what he's listening to. They made sure the volume is high. And he went with them several times ATVing. Just was there with no interaction with them at all. They slept over. He took a separate room. In fact, to make it more exact, he had to be in a separate hotel. And this person's kid is now married. I had to work on the kid, work on that, but it was unbelievable. This kid is married, running a huge business, and the father actually gave now the son the business, and the father's going for social work school. His passion is exactly this stage on what to work on. He had to deal with himself that I don't know what my kids are doing. He had to deal with that this son is a clone of me. He had to deal with the issues that everything that was, every suffix that this kid ever had and mentioned him was everything that this guy struggled. He went to at peace, but seeing it in front of his eyes is the greatest struggle that he had. And once he was able to work on himself, interesting, in that Shalom Bayis over there, the wife had very little connection to the kid, but the son didn't trigger her. She said, go. And the son had no issue with her, but he had the issues with the father because he were clones. If we can realize that the son only wanted the relationship, all the other kids are great with the mother, but this emotional type kid only wanted to get from the Father, and the Father couldn't do it until he changed himself. And until the Father can throw a fit, and he's able to listen and just be there. And what hurt the son the most of all is that the kids were saying, you have the coolest father ever. And the son couldn't stand it. And the son, when he got compliments, somebody told the other thing was that, you're getting me deaf, I can't hear anything. But the son would play around with the value, and it worked. So what I'd like us all to realize is, work on our triggers. The teenagers are begging us to hold on. When I say teenagers, they can be 20, 30, 40, and 50 at that stage. They want us to connect. They can't function in life, because to them life is aching, agony, burning, cramps, discomfort, fever, illness, and injury. And we want to get them to that we can hold and support them, that life is an advantage, life is aid, there's help, there's assistance, there's benefit, there's blessings, there's comfort, there's content, and there's ease. And in order to get that, at these stages, we need to be clear within ourselves. We need to see that this is the stage, whenever we help them get to adulthood, where we can help them get through that space, they will get there, and this guy's now running a huge company. Baruch Hashem, married in a huge company, and the father is able to now become a social worker. Hatzlach, everyone. Aga Tavach. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.